Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video, well, I'm going to be checking out Tetris on various different Nintendo consoles. As you know, I am a big fan of Tetris, and I've played it and shown it on lots of different systems, but I wanted to do one video sort of comparing what it looks like across them in one video. So these are the systems I've got. This is my original Game Boy. This is my son's Game Boy Pocket. This is my Game Boy Advance SP, the AGS 001 front lit version. This is an original Nintendo DS. This is my DSi XL, and down here is my Nintendo 3DS. So before I do anything, I'm just going to pop my 3DS on charge because it's looking like it needs it. And we're going to start off at the very beginning, so let's move some of these out of the way. So let's start with the original Game Boy, because that is where Tetris sort of originated from, at least from a portable point of view, and anyone who owns a Game Boy will have owned Tetris, mostly because it was a pack-in title, but also because it was absolutely amazing. So the purpose of this video is to check out what the screens look like, how it feels to play, and, well, you can then make up your mind which one you think is the best. So we're going to start off with Tetris on the Game Boy. So I've got a cartridge of Tetris there. Which it doesn't seem to want to pick up. I have issues with this cartridge. There we go. So, original Game Boy, it's got that green hue screen, but it's perfectly viewable, especially in decent light. Like I've said in previous videos, I've used this console when I was younger for hours on end. So this is Tetris on an original Game Boy. And as always, I play with the music off. So let's have a little look at Game Boy Tetris. So I love the actual weight and chunkiness of the Game Boy. It's perfect as a handheld console. It may seem a little sort of chubby by today's standards, but it's absolutely perfect to play on. It's got such a comfortable feel. It is one of those consoles that you can play for hours on end, and I did back in the early 90s when this was my only escapism. So even though it isn't the best quality of screen, it plays fantastic. Yes, it's a mono screen, and it's a mono green screen, but it is amazing. And Tetris just fits absolutely perfectly on this console. I mean, the screen may not be as good as some of the other consoles we're going to look at in a minute, but you can't fault it for playing Tetris. So that is Tetris on an original Game Boy. You've got that green huey screen, but it's fantastic, especially if you've got a decent quality screen lens. I recently replaced mine and it made a huge amount of difference, but for overall comfort, the Game Boy is great. It's chubby, it's chunky, the buttons are just in the most amazing place for comfort. So that's Tetris on the Game Boy. Now we move over to my son's console, which is the Game Boy Pocket, which has also featured in lots of videos of mine recently. So he's got his copy of Tetris in here. And let's have a look at that now. Instantly my fingers are sort of squeezing the side of it. It's a pocket, it's a lot smaller, but you can also instantly see that the screen is definitely better. It is still a mono screen, but it's a lot clearer, a lot crisper, and you don't have to sort of twist it so much to get it in that optimum space. It is a smaller console, and I do find that it's just a little cramped in your hand. You don't get that sort of nice wide chubbiness that you get from an original Game Boy. But that is not to say that it's not a great console. So let's have a little bash on Tetris on a Game Boy Pocket. Once again, music off. Now yes, the screen is mono, although this time it is actually true mono. So there's no greenness to this. It's a, I'm not going to say black and white because there aren't any blacks, but it's a grey and light grey screen rather than a green and light green screen. And this is a superb game, and it plays absolutely fantastic. Yes, you can see it a lot better on a pocket. Like I said, it is less dependent on the angle and the lighting that you're in. The only thing I don't particularly like about his Game Boy Pocket is I feel that his direction pad, you can hear that, it's a little loose, seems a little wobbly to me. I also don't think his volume is as loud as it is on an original Game Boy, although I have to say my Game Boy was stripped recently and cleaned, so that may have some impact on it. So it's a lovely console to play on, and it's great that the Nintendo updated it, made it more portable, more pocketable, obviously updated the screen to make it better quality, but I think the size just does it for me. It's comfortable. I'm not sort of knocking the Game Boy Pocket at all because it is a superb console, especially with that vastly improved screen. But it's not the sort of console I think I could play on for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So that is Tetris on a Game Boy Pocket. I haven't got a Game Boy Color, so my next console is going to be my Game Boy Advance SP. And let's take a copy of Tetris here. This is my Japanese Tetris. Pop it in the bottom. Oops. Yes, it's got that big chin on it because it's a Game Boy game in a Game Boy Advance. So let's have a look at this. Like I said, this is the AGS 001 model. So it's got a front lit screen, no backlit. And let's have a look and see how Tetris plays on this. My volume switch. Ah, there it is. So it's a Game Boy game, so it has a slight coloration to it. This can be altered in the start-up menu if you get in there quick, but for the purpose of this video, I just wanted to turn it on and get it going. So as you can see, I think the screen is quite small in comparison. I mean, the original Game Boy is a 1.9 inch screen, so possibly looking at that screen sort of size there, it looks about the same. It just appears bigger, especially on the Game Boy Pocket. But let's play some, well, Tetris on a Game Boy Advance SP. So the front light is on. If I was to turn it off, that would give you the idea of what it would look like on a Game Boy Color and original Game Boy Advance. Still pretty decent, especially in good light. But the whole point of me buying this Advance SP was because of the lit screen. Like I say, it's the early model, so it's the front lit screen. If you were to get the AGS 101 model, you'd have a lovely backlit screen, but I just wanted a lit screen to play Game Boy cartridges, so a little less waffle. This is Tetris on a Game Boy Advance SP. I mean, you cannot fault the screen. It is superb. There are a lot of people out there that think that you should just go straight for an AGS 101, and if one came up, I would probably grab it, or would have done before I bought this one. But they're expensive, and I don't think the front lit screen is an issue on a Game Boy Advance SP. If we talk about the console itself, one of the main criticisms of an Advance SP is its size and shape. It's supposed to be compact, which it is. It folds nice and small, but it also it gives me that Game Boy Pocket vibe. It's quite a narrow console. It's quite a thin console. You can find yourself sort of hand cramping slightly. I do like the buttons. The D-pad seems very well. There isn't a lot of travel in it. It's quite flat and flush, but I quite like that. In terms of playing Tetris on an on a Game Boy Advance SP, it's fantastic. If I was to be looking at playing Tetris with a real cartridge, this would be the system I would pick. Because it is great. The screen quality is superb. I know there are some people out there, like my son, that doesn't like that sort of slight colorization to it. So he was quite happy when he discovered that you could change the color palette and put it back to how it should be normally. Sound quality on an SP is superb. I think some of it is because the speaker is in the middle rather than sort of down in the corner where your hand could slightly block it, that you get on an original Game Boy or a Pocket or a Color. It's a great placement for the speaker, and I like the fact that the Game Boy Advance SP is rechargeable. So that is me playing Tetris on a Game Boy Advance SP. Superb screen quality, fantastic console. Just sometimes I think that it is a little small to use permanently, like it's a long-term gaming session. So let me move over to the Nintendo DS. Now, anyone who has a Nintendo DS or anyone who knows anything about them will know you can't play proper Game Boy cartridges in a DS. It does have an advanced slot, but it is for advanced games only. This cartridge will not even go in. So for the purpose of this video, I am using an R4 flash cart with a copy of Lame Boy, I think, which is a Game Boy emulator for the DS. This DS is in a little poor health. It's got a wobbly screen, but it still plays absolutely fine. So this is my R4 card loading on a DS, and I shall load up GameBoy. Find the GameBoy section, and Tetris, here we go. So this is going to be Tetris on a Nintendo DS. Now the Nintendo DS is a fantastic console. It has a backlit screen. It's not the best quality of backlit screen. The Nintendo DS Lite had a far better screen, but I don't currently own one of those. So we're checking it out on an original DS. So that's one thing I like about emulating Game Boy games, is you can keep it in its original size, or you can max it to the whole size of the screen. And I actually prefer to play with the screen on the top half. So this is Tetris on a Nintendo DS. Now the screen is fantastic. Look at that, that is superb. And it doesn't bring in that weird colour palette that you get on a, well, if you put it in a colour or a Game Boy Advance. It's pure black and white. So let's start that. I'm not impressed personally with the speaker volume on that. It's very quiet and quite sort of tinny. So let's get that music turned off. And as you can see, it doesn't matter where I twist the screen, it's perfectly viewable. It would be great if I could just flip it forward slightly, but my hinge is broken on this one. So let's have a little bash at Tetris on an original Nintendo DS. See, I like the wideness of the DS range. I think it just suits your hands better than, well, the original Game Boy was great because it was big and chunky. They then went sort of small and slim. If you had an original Game Boy Advance, it's got this kind of shape to it. But I didn't like the screen on the Game Boy Advance. That's why I went for an SP. But talking about the DS, it is a great console. Just giving this a bit of a bash on a DS this morning has made me want to fix this blue one up a little bit, because it works perfectly. It's just got a broken hinge. I like the design, I like the weight of it, I like the sort of curvedness that you get on the back of a DS. I even quite like this rather bizarre D-pad. It's a very flat D-pad, and it's got these little sort of ridges on the edge of each extremity, and the same with the buttons over here. They're quite flat. There's no concaveness to them, and very little travel in any of these buttons, which I like a lot. I hadn't actually realised just how nice an original DS was to play on. I bought this and another one a few months ago in a bit of poor shape, and I spent more time concentrating on the other one, but I think I might just fix this one up and get it going. Playing Tetris on it is absolutely fantastic. It'll be even more fantastic if I can get some lines out of this. There we go. So, yes, another great console to play Tetris on. There we go, I've got to 10 lines. I mean, I absolutely love the DS Lite. but the original DS does have its uniqueness, and in some ways it's better to play on. So that's Tetris on an original DS, obviously using a flash cart. My next console of choice is my beloved Nintendo DSi XL, although this is the LL model, which is a Japanese version. It is a fantastic console. I haven't got a DSi because I didn't see the point in having both. I've got lots of regular sized DS's, and the DSi XL is amazing. So let's load it up on here. Once again, you can't plug any cartridges, any Game Boy cartridges into a DSi, so I am using a custom firmware on my DSi XL. So I'm using Twilight menu, where I will be loading up Tetris. So let's find Tetris, there we go. So let's have a look at Tetris on a DSi XL. Now, anyone who's seen my previous videos will know I absolutely love this console. Some of it is for the size, some of it is for just the whole screens. The whole console in general is amazing. So this is set to top screen, and like you could on the Nintendo DS, you can make that huge. And with the large screens of the DSi XL, it's fantastic. Playing Game Boy games on a 4-inch IPS display is phenomenal. I mean, look at that, that is amazing. It is my go-to console for Game Boy games, because I just don't think you can beat that screen. I mean, you could do the same on a DSi. It has vastly superior screens to the original DS. They are better than they are on the DS Lite, but I don't think the regular DSi has IPS displays. I think they are regular TN displays, which are great, but they don't match the quality you get from IPS. And all DSi XLs and LLs, as far as I know, someone correct me if I'm wrong, have IPS displays. I mean, look at that, that is just amazing. If we talk about the console itself, I prefer the XL, one, because of the screens, but two, it's a big console to hold. It really is comfortable. The buttons are superbly placed, and I cannot fault this console at all. I've played many a Game Boy games on a DSi XL, and it's my chosen way to play them. So it doesn't have that chubby feel to an original Game Boy, but it's got that extra wide feel that you don't get from, well, like a regular DS or a regular DS Lite or I. With the just like the original DS that I just played on, I think the D-pad is great. It doesn't have a lot of travel. Don't like spongy D-pads. Just try and get to 10 lines, which is what I'm trying to do on each console in this video. I mean, it is an amazing console to play any games on. I absolutely love it. I love the feel of it. I love the weight of it. And I can play this console for hours on end without any issues at all. So that's a DSi XL. Now the last console on my list, which I just have to go and get because I just put it on charge, is my original Nintendo 3DS. Now this console doesn't come out very often. And for this I won't be using a flash cart. it's running custom firmware. So I'm going to be running an emulator called GameBoy, which I think is pretty similar to what you get on Twilight Menu, and it's similar to Laneboy as well. So let's just find where the GameBoy ROM is stored. There it is. So let's have a look at Tetris on an original 3DS. Now before I start playing that, you get great quality screens, you get this fantastic build quality, but it's more of a size of a DS Lite, DSi, rather than this sort of chunky behemoth of a DSi XL. Some people prefer a smaller console. It has its advantages. So let's take a look at Tetris on a original 3DS with its 3.2 inch screen, I think it is. Same thing again, you can stretch the screen to full size. Looks sort of similar size, regular size to what you would find on a normal Game Boy. It's only the XL that really pushes that screen to 4 inches. So let's have a look. You've also got the circle pad on a 3DS, which you don't get on the other consoles, which I'm going to try and play with. Let's get that music turned off. Volume. I always forget where the volumes are on these things. Here it is. So let's turn that up. Well, that's loud. So that is very loud. You can play with the circle pad. It feels really unnatural. So I'm just going to go back to the regular D-pad. Very decent sound quality out of a 3DS. Like I say, this 3DS doesn't come out very often, but I will not part with it for a lot of reasons. One, it's the only console I've got that will play 3DS games, and two, it's my first 3DS. In terms of playing Tetris on it, well, the screen quality, as you can see, is fantastic. Now these don't have IPS displays. As I said earlier, I think it's only the DSi XL that is guaranteed to have IPS displays. These have TN displays, but really the quality of them is still fantastic. It's amazingly lit. Absolutely superb, crisp quality. It's a very comfortable console to play. I've played many a 3DS game on this console, and I actually preferred it over my new 3DS XL, which I don't own anymore. I decided to keep this instead. I didn't take advantage really of the newness or the new power in a new 3DS XL. The buttons are superb on a 3DS. Tetris plays absolutely fantastically. You've got more sort of concave buttons on a 3DS. I find, because they've had to put in the circle pad there and they've pushed the D-pad down to the bottom, that is my only slight grievance with a 3DS. I would have preferred it sort of more in the middle here, but obviously they don't have a lot of, well, space, I suppose. So you find yourself kind of with that Xbox controller feel, where you've got one hand down here and one hand up here. Whereas on something like a 3DS or a DSi XL, the D-pad is up the top there, and the same with the regular DS. They're in line with each other, but this sort of slightly skewedness on a 3DS, it's not a huge issue, but it's something I noticed straight away. But it is what it is. It's so you can use a circle pad and a D-pad at the same time, because a lot of games for the 3DS, that they were different. They did different things. So that's Tetris on a 3DS. Superb. Screen quality is great. If you wanted to do a 3DS but larger, you could go for the 3DS XL. That's something that's not really interested me. Obviously, I love the XL screens on the DSi XL, but I've had no need to upgrade my 3DS to an XL, and I've had a new 2DS XL and a new 3DS XL in the past, and there's nothing really I did on it that the 3DS didn't do, and the 3DS is more pocketable. And like I said, I love this console. It's my first 3DS. I did a lot of repair work on this to get it as it is. So that's Tetris on there. So a quick sort of summary. You've got your original Game Boy, fantastic for playing Tetris on, but it isn't really. It's not the best way to do it, but it's the original way to do it. The Pocket is great. The screen is a lot better, but I'm still not entirely taken on this smallness of the Pocket. Then we move up to the DS. No, we don't. Dear me. Then we move to the Game Boy Advance SP. Great, because it can still actually take proper cartridges, but similar to the Pocket, it's quite small, it's quite thin, and I do find it probably just a little bit too cramped to play for a long time. Although if I didn't have any other way of playing Game Boy games, this would be it. And then you've got the DS. This is the original DS. Fantastic console, very underrated these days. Lots of people go for the lights, and I can see why, because the light is great. But the original DS does have it's so ergonomic in the hand. It's fantastic, and I like these differences that you get, which I haven't seen them on other consoles. The D-pad on a Game Boy Advance SP is flat. The same with the other consoles, but this one has these little, I don't know if you can see them, little ridges on the edge of each point, and that makes it nice to play. Great screens on original DS. And then you've got the beast that is the DSi XL. Big 4-inch screens, very comfortable, amazing weight, and that's that one. And then you've got a 3DS, which is a good console. Don't get me wrong, I do like that. It's great for 3DS games. I've had lots of other consoles for that, so I've had a 2DS, I've had a new 2DS XL and a new 3DS XL, and out of all of them I've kept this one. For playing Game Boy games, etc., it is a good console, just I'm not entirely pleased with this little D-pad being shoved to the bottom. So that is a quick sort of roundup of lots of different Nintendo consoles and how they feel in the hand, and more importantly, how they play Tetris. For me, if I was going to go for my favourite that can play actual cartridges, then it's got to be the Game Boy Advance SP. Because of the screen, it is superb. It is a very compact console, that is a plus for it, with the only downside is that regular Game Boy and Game Boy Color games do stick out the bottom very much. And if I'm going for which console can I emulate or run a flash cart or custom firmware on, then this will be my go-to console. It is superb, the battery life is insane on it. I love the 4-inch screens that you get, and the whole general feel of the console is superb. But if you wanted a console, because obviously that is it's a DS basically, so you can't play 3DS games on. If you wanted a console to do the lot, then you can pick up one of these. This is a 3DS. It's small, it's compact, but it's not too compact. The screens are fantastic on it. It will play 3DS games. It will take custom firmware, and it's got an SD slot. And if you've been a fan of sort of smaller consoles, then the 3DS is great. So what's my best way to play Tetris? Well, if we're talking about Tetris in general, then I would go for the Game Boy Pocket. Slap a cartridge in, brilliant screen, not great in varying lights, but it's still superb. Then it would be this, because this will play in any light and it will take cartridges, etc. For my everyday go-to console for playing DS games and emulating other games from like the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, etc., then the DSi XL is my favourite console. So there you go, that is me playing Tetris on 6 different consoles in various ways. Obviously these are all played using proper cartridges, whereas these are emulated. These are built into the system because they've got built-in storage, so you can run custom firmware directly on them, whereas something like the DS or the DS Lite, it's done via a flash cart. So there you go. Let me know what you think of this video. Which system do you prefer for playing? Well, we'll talk about Tetris because that's what's covered in this video, but other Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, etc., Game Boy Advance games, DS games, whatever you're playing on your system, which one out of these would you choose and for what reason? So I hope you enjoyed this rather lengthy video, and like, subscribe, enjoy.